Baltimore Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta and head coach John Harbaugh spoke to the media today on the heels of a disappointing early playoff exit yet again without reaching the ultimate goal of a Super Bowl. And for quarterback Lamar Jackson, head coach John Harbaugh and general manager Eric DeCosta, questions needed to be answered. And they didn't waste any time, Ravens flock, Flex Zone family. They spoke this morning. I got the recap and all of my reactions from the press conference. Trying something new today. Hopefully you guys like it. Going to recap the press conference kind of in a Cliff Notes, Spark Notes type of version. And I'm going to give you what they're really saying and just my analysis of what I took from the press conference. Obviously, nothing groundbreaking, nothing earth-shattering. But I want to hear from you in the comment section. Make sure you comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on the general manager, Eric DeCosta, on John Harbaugh. I know a lot of you want him to go. I personally don't think he's going anywhere. I personally think he's going to get an extension this offseason. I'll talk about that in some future videos I'm working on. But let's get into the gist of the press conference. Make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button. Hit the bell. Let us know your thoughts on the season coming to an end. What do you want to see in the offseason? And what do you think they are saying in these press conference snippets? But make sure, like I said, if you're new, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell. The first soundbite that we have is Eric DeCosta talking about how disappointed this team genuinely was after the season.
Perspective over 29 seasons, and we've had 27 seasons like this. I think my math is right. But I'm very proud of the team this year. It was a successful season. I'm not going to sit up here and say it was not a successful season. It was in just about every way of looking at it. But I'm disappointed, and John's disappointed. We're all disappointed. Our team's disappointed. We had higher aspirations, and we didn't achieve those aspirations and goals. But I think it was a successful season. I'm very proud of the team, the players, the coaches, support staff, everybody. And I've already moved on. I've started watching tape. I'm immersed in college and pro scouting right now and talking about contracts and negotiations and different things. And that's one, I think for me, that's one of the blessings of my job is it's very seasonal. And I'm in now one of my most favorite seasons, which is the off season, which is not, it's a misnomer because it's my busiest time of the year. But I love being a part of the solution, and that's what we'll be.
So right off the bat, we are getting into the gist of why we're here. And you can kind of get the feeling, get the vibe of immediately once this press conference was announced, you see Eric DeCosta, you see John Harbaugh, they're dressed up. They didn't expect their season to be ending today. They didn't expect to be doing this press conference on January 22nd. They did not expect to be speaking to the media, speaking to the fans. And I think what people need to realize is from that perspective, when you are a coach, when you are a GM, when you are an owner, and you're doing these pressers, you're not speaking directly to the media or even the fans a lot of times. You're speaking to the player. And more so, more specifically, you're speaking to their family because the players may or may not listen to what people are saying or listening to the outside noise, but you are speaking to their family members, their friends, their girlfriends, their spouses, their loved ones, their inner circle, the people who pretty much tell them how great they are 24/7, 365. And you have to be careful of what you say, but I think putting into perspective, you can see the disappointment, you can feel the sadness, kind of that continual dark cloud that we see year in and year out with this roster. And unfortunately, it happens yet again. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of feel sorry for Eric DeCosta. I kind of feel sorry for John Harbaugh. People want to say, oh, Eric DeCosta doesn't do enough. Oh, John Harbaugh doesn't do enough. Eric DeCosta tried to make moves for this team. Clearly, he made the Deontay Johnson trade, didn't work out. But how many times has Eric DeCosta swung and hit a home run? I go back to Marcus Peters. I go back to Roquan Smith. He's done things in the past that shows he's not adverse to taking a risk, a little bit more risk than even Ozzie. And with the whole even bringing in the right guys last year, free agency, Jadeveon Clowney, Kyle Van Noy, getting the deal done with Kyle Van Noy. You saw the breakout season he had, being our best pass rusher. So they are upset, but Eric even mentioned as the general manager, his real season begins. This is where he does his work because during the season, he just kind of sits back and lets the players and coaches do their job. But after the trade deadline, in season, you can't do much else. Free agency, well, getting ready for the draft, the combine, free agency, those types of things are going to take precedent and define what the 2025 Baltimore Ravens are. And Eric DeCosta is going to spearhead that. He's scouting players. He's looking at drafting and developing guys. He's looking at the needs of this team. So I think you have to trust in EDC. I know they got 11 picks. I don't know if they're going to have 11 guys make this team. I think that could allow some more wiggle room for this team to be more flexible in the draft. If they're at 27, hey, I'm not saying you got to jump up to 17, but maybe you jump up to 21, 22, and you use some of those picks to move up because this roster doesn't need a lot. You may need a piece here, a piece there, an offensive lineman, a cornerback, a pass rusher, another wide receiver. So if that guy is on the board in the draft potentially, and you can go up and get him, and he's a plug and play impact guy, why not? You got 11 picks. If you get rid of 2 or 3 of them, you still got 8. You get rid of 4 of them, you still got 7. So don't be hoarding these picks. You don't need 11 picks because 11 guys, undrafted guys or drafted guys, aren't going to make this team, plus undrafted free agents. So with that being said, trust the process, guys. But I would like to see them be a little more aggressive if the board calls for it in the draft. Will they? Probably not. But that is something I'm looking forward to because think about it. 11 guys aren't going to make this team. We got a pretty much ready-made team to compete. They're not making this roster. So maybe getting rid of 3 or 4 picks to get better players in the draft because you're picking at 27 wouldn't hurt. Let's move on. Eric DeCosta did talk about the offensive line. I want to give a big shout out to George Warhop. He hasn't got enough love throughout the season, but George Warhop, rest in peace to Joe D. Of course, Jacoby Jones, who the Ravens were playing for, had the patches. The passing of Joe D, the offensive line coach, had this team in flux, had the offensive line in flux, which was one of the biggest questions coming into the season. And now, pretty much a year later, one of the strengths. We talked about some of the pieces of the O line, and Eric DeCosta mentioned that during the press conference here. I want to play what he said about the O line, then I will talk about it as well.
Well, I think, Vinny, our goal is to always have the best line that we can have, offensive line. We made a tough call last year to go younger and bring in and have some younger guys play. And we knew we'd have a few growing pains. I think we had a few, but looking back on it, I think it was absolutely the right thing to do. And we saw our guys improve and get better and really mesh as a unit and gel. We are aware that we have some, guys that contracts are up. And we'll look at that and certainly have some discussions with players. And we'll look at potentially bringing back our guys. We'll look at the draft. We'll look at free agency. We'll overturn every rock to find as many good offensive linemen as we can. And I think we have some good young players on the team. They've shown that. And one thing that we've seen over the years with that position is guys get better as they get older and more established and get in the weight room and get stronger and play better. So that's going to be the case with the guys we have. We're blessed to have really good coaches and some good young players. But also we realize that we're probably going to have conservatively 10 or 11 draft picks this year, free agency, and still the chance to get some deals signed with some of those guys.
You see it right there talking about the offensive line. The offensive line was fantastic this season. You lose your offensive line coach. You bring in George Warhop, well-renowned offensive line coach, comes in. Ronnie Stanley hasn't played a full season in multiple years. He practices every day. He's not on the injury report. He's playing. He's playing maybe at a middle of the pack level when you add everything into it, but a serviceable starting left tackle, an impending free agent. Left guard, McCary, only 27 years of age. He's a free agent. So the left side of the line does have some questions. Voorhees can slide in. We know Tyler Linderbaum, Pro Bowler. Daniel Fahalele, the development of him. And I think that's where people got to realize. With Harbaugh, yeah, it may not always be X's and O's, but with one thing, with coaching, you have to be able to develop talent. You have to be able to take a guy and develop him and make him even better than he is. And Daniel Fahalele is a perfect example of that. We were killing this guy early in the season. He has put together A wonderful season, one of the most improved players in the league, one of the most improved offensive linemen. And now you look at the right side of that line with him and Rosengarten. I think they're pretty set. And Eric DeCosta even spoke about the rookie Roger Rosengarten out of Washington, the second round pick.
Played both sides of that. He's played left and right. I mean, this year it's a very hard thing to come in as an offensive lineman as a rookie and play well. And Roger honestly just got better and better and better and better. Mature guy beyond his years. I think a year in the weight room is going to really serve him well, as it will all of our guys. But I think that we were very. I can speak for myself and say I was very happy with what Roger did. It's a very tough position to play as a young player. I think his future is very bright, as are the guys that he played with on the offensive line this year. And we're excited to see what he looks like next year. Well, he's played.
As you can see with Mr. Rosengarten, another big shout out to him. To him and Falele, Ronnie, the whole offensive line, Linderbaum, McCary, Voorhees. Like I said, I think Voorhees can slide in if McCary, because McCary is going to be a valuable guy on the free agent market, as is Ronnie Stanley. So obviously, I would like to have at least one of them back. McCary's versatility, being the swing man, being the six man, being a starting left guard, being able to play the right side, being able to play tackle, he can do it all. So a team that needs offensive line help in a league where offensive line play is down across the board, you can see him being heavily sought after. As well as Ronnie Stanley. You can get a starting caliber left tackle. You telling me the Kansas City Chiefs wouldn't pay whatever it takes to get a Ronnie Stanley? You're telling me a team like the Cincinnati Bengals or a team like the Houston Texans, maybe even, who we saw CJ Stroud get demolished, wouldn't look after a guy like Ronnie Stanley or Patrick McCary, or even LA, the Rams. You look at Jalen Carter, how he dominated them. You don't think they would love a guy on the outside like Stanley, or maybe a guy on the interior to protect Matt Stafford? So these are going to be guys that are going to cost more money. The price is only going to go up. And that's where it comes into, because what is the supply and demand? And offensive line is one of the biggest demands in the NFL. But big shout out to the offensive line, Roger Rosengarten, Eric DeCosta. Let's talk about drafting and developing, hitting on Rosengarten. Remember, he blocked the right side at Washington for Penix. Penix is a left-handed quarterback, so he protected Penix's blind side. And remember, look at what he did against TJ Watt in the playoff game. Look what he did against Myles Garrett, getting the jersey and the viral thing that went there on Hard Knocks. This guy, Roger Rosengarten and Falele, especially in Linderbaum, those three guys are going to be foundational pieces for your offensive line. And one of the questions on this team is now, which was potentially a weakness, is now a strength. And they're only young and getting better. So look for those three guys moving forward. What happens on the left side of the line? That is where a pick at 27, maybe you can move up and get an offensive lineman. But I don't think this draft is full of rich talent where you can sit back and just let guys go. So that's why I'm saying if you're at 27, you may have to move up to 19 or 20 or 21 to really get a guy. But the Steelers are at 20, so really, are you going to be able to leapfrog them? That's going to cost a lot, but 11 picks, we shall indeed see. And as you can see, with the Ravens, they definitely want to. I think they value and they know how to win football games in the National Football League, and it is indeed in the trenches. And I think that's what you're seeing here with the Baltimore Ravens. Now look at the defense. Harbaugh did speak about Dean Pease. Will Dean Pease be back? What is his role with the team moving forward? I don't know. I would like to possibly back, because it looks like they're going to bring back most of their coaches, unlike last year. So a lot more stability going into the offseason. But let's look at what Harbaugh said about Gene Pease as well.
Yeah, I have a little more nuanced thing. Just appreciative of Dean and the job he did. I know Zach feels the same way. Defensive coaches, it helped us. It was a good thing to have Dean come back and experience it, reconnected us to, our roots in terms of the structure of the defense, because Dean was a big part of that for, from 2012 and 2011, 2010 even, as a linebacker coach, and on through as a coordinator through 17, it was kind of good to get reconnected to a lot of that, and I think he was a good eye and ear for the players and coaches, and he's interested in continuing in some sort of a role. I do think he's at that stage of his life where it's probably not going to be that full time thing like he did the second half of the season. Mel, his wife, is amazing. She was here. She'd come by and be in the cafeteria and be around, and it was great to have her around. But they're at that time of their life where they got some different priorities with the grandkids and stuff. But he is going to be still connected. He'll still have a role as a consultant for us. That's my plan. That's his plan, and and that's great.
So it looks like Dean Pease will be back in a consultant role. Obviously, not a spring chicken. Has a lot of these. They have a lot of veteran guys in leadership, so that's always good. And Dean Pease being back, I was skeptical of the move. I was like, well, what is it going to do? You got to give this man credit. It helped out on the defense, and you saw Zach Orr pretty much inevitably get better. And you look at Zach Orr. You give Zach Orr another year doing what he did with that defense from weeks 11 to 17. Is this time next year with the lack of names to really jump out and gravitate an organization towards when it comes to coaching? I mean, outside of Ben Johnson and maybe Aaron Glenn, who are the big names for the coaching aspect, the coaching ranks right now? I don't know who's out there, but you look at the crop, you look at the young black coordinators, you look at the young black potential minds in the NFL. Yeah, I don't know who is out there for coaching. That's why I was like, people are, I want to fire Harbaugh. I want to. What do you want to fire him for? Who are you going to get? Let's be real. Who are you going to get that is going to do what he does? That is going to be able to command the locker room that he can command. Say what you want about him. I know he has 1 year left on his contract. I'm a ride with Harbs. I actually think DeCosta and Harbs are tied at the hip. Like I said, I'm going to work on a video about that, but I think Harbaugh will inevitably get an extension. We know special teams was a big aspect. Justin Tucker was not his best season, but boy, did he finish strong after the bye. And it looks like Justin Tucker is good to go back 1 more year for the Ravens. And Eric DeCosta spoke on the kicker.
Well, I think Justin's going to go down as, in my opinion, as if not the best kicker of all time, one of the best. And I think he finished the season strong. We'll have those discussions, but I think I have every expectation that Justin's going to be a great kicker for us next year and moving forward. We're blessed to have Randy Brown and Chris Horton upstairs and Sam Cook, awesome coaches, special teams coaches. They'll be a part of the discussion, but the way that Justin finished, he finished strong this year towards the end. Had a little bit of adversity midway through the season, but I think Justin is a tremendous competitor, very, very talented. He works his butt off, and I would expect him to be the kicker for us next year.
So as you can see there, excuse me, Justin Tucker isn't going anywhere, and nor should he. Now they may bring in a leg in the camp, but it looks like Tucker fixed whatever demons he was facing. So good to have that solidified going into 2025 because boy, we didn't need more issues with that. Rashad Bateman, a guy I liked in Minnesota. You guys know I cover Maryland. I've seen this guy in college. When the Ravens got him, I knew he was a first round caliber receiver. Maybe fell to the Ravens to a degree. And you really saw the breakout year for Rashad Bateman and Eric DeCosta once again before the season, giving him a mini extension, working out a deal to keep him past his 5th year. At the time, I was like, well, I'm not really expecting much from Bateman, but last year played every game. This year played every game. Saw him show up in big games in the playoffs, both playoff games. Unfortunately, without Zay Flowers, he did get banged up at the end of the Buffalo game, so he was out of that. But Rashad Bateman, Eric DeCosta's got to love that because he's one of his drafted guys, one of his first draft picks, one of his first draft classes, I believe. So having Rashad show out makes DeCosta look good, and I'm glad Bateman is finally becoming who we think he can be.
Appreciate you bringing up those guys, and I think I'm very proud of Rashad Bateman. This guy's had some adversity with injuries along the way that he's overcome some serious injuries and some bad luck, and I think he's taken some criticism, and he came back this year with a vengeance and just kept stacking and stacking and stacking and fighting through some nagging stuff and playing and getting better every single week. And it's a great story, and I think he's just getting started. I really do, and so he's a great person. He works hard. Again, another guy that really loves football and loves the game. And I think his future is very bright, and I can't wait to see what he looks like next year. And those
Sorry about that, guys. If you made it this far to the video, I appreciate it. Good to see Bateman do his thing. Bateman is balling out. Love Bateman. And Bateman's maturity. He's been locked in. He's been engaged. Him and Lamar seem to have more of a chemistry. And you look at the receiver room. This is Flowers, Bateman, and Walker. Wallace is a free agent. I could see him maybe back as a 4 or 5 on a team-friendly deal, especially with the special teams. Kind of flux with returning. They need a returner, in my opinion. You could see Wallace probably part of that equation. They're going to need to add a receiver or two especially through the draft. They're probably going to have to draft one and maybe go out and get maybe. Now we've heard the rumors of Tyreek Hill and DK Metcalf and all these other people we want to trade for, but they may have to go out and sign another receiver, 3 or 4, like an Aguilar. So we'll see. We shall see. Who did step up this year? An extending player, someone I've been critical of, Adafe Owe. He is indeed coming back. They worked out a deal with him, picked up his option. So big shout out to Owe getting sacks, and Eric DeCosta spoke on Adafe Owe.
Those other guys, Adafe, another guy. I think he also had a lot to prove this year, and we made the decision to pick up his 5th-year option. I'm glad we did. Finished with double-digit sacks this year and had some big plays and big games for us. And again, ascending player, a good young player. I think he's going to build off this year and be a better player. And then those other guys, Adafe.
If Owe can continue to get better, that would be great. He's gone up to double-digit sacks next year. Obviously, we're expecting that as a minimum because he wants to get paid. So I expect another good year from him. Didn't see him much in the playoff game, and that's the tendency with Adafe, just being more consistent. We'll see him for a game or two. He'll have a sack or two. You'll look up, he'll have 8, 9, 10 sacks in a season like he had this year with 10, but just in the big moments, he just seems to disappear. So that consistency, I think consistently building his repertoire of not only pass rush moves, but counter moves with Chuck Smith will be very, very important for this team moving forward. But Bateman, Owe, Eric DeCosta draft picks. He wants to see them do well. He's helped them. He's paid them. He's made sure they're going to be with this team on cost-friendly deals. And I think you see they're going to be a part of the future with the Baltimore Ravens. Lastly, we can't forget about Derrick Henry. I got Derrick Henry, and we got Marlon Humphrey and Pat Ricard, speaking of free agents as well. And I even talked a little bit about Hard Knocks. So let's play those cuts for me. Rock with me for about 5 more minutes. I got you. This is Eric DeCosta on Derrick Henry, and what a great sign that was. Because we talk about the Ravens don't make big free agent signings. They did with Henry, and boy, oh boy, did they make themselves look like geniuses.
Yeah. Well, some people, I think Jerry thought he was over the hill last year. But I think he proved that he had a lot left in the tank. And I'm sorry, Jerry, I couldn't resist.
Jerry's been on before.
We'll look at that. I think it's a good question. I'm just so grateful that Derek chose us last year, came in and just I can honestly say like his attitude and the way that he played was amazing to watch, and just his relationship with his teammates, his humility as a player, his work ethic. Can't wait to see him next year. I know it was tough on him to end the way it did, tough on all of us. But I think we have a chip on our shoulders to come back next year with a vengeance, to start faster than we started this year, to not start 0-2 next year, to get out of the gates faster. And I think Derek will be a big part of that.
Derrick Henry isn't going anywhere. Do we expect 2,000 yards? No, but it seems like he's ingratiated himself with this franchise, this city. He's found a brother in Lamar. He said their chemistry will only get stronger. Hopefully with Todd Monken in year 3 of this offense, year 2 with Derrick Henry. Big things, hopefully. Like I said, this roster is ready-made to compete still. So they should still be in the mix. And Eric DeCosta also spoke about another veteran with Marlon Humphrey as well.
Yeah, Marlon it's a great story. I love Marlon. We spend a lot of time talking together of different things, usually about life stuff, not so much football. I think a big thing for Marlon was just staying healthy. His off season, how he trains, what he does, how he eats, how he runs, how he works out, his mindset. He came in, he was focused day one. I think he felt like, Marlon's the type of guy, he wants to he wants to challenge, he wants to be challenged, he wants to have a chip on his shoulder. And I think, he would probably say that he heard some of the criticisms and some of the complaints. He's a highly paid player, and he came back this year and he proved everybody wrong, and made plays. Attitude was great, a leader, physical like he's always been, big play guy. Outstanding. I thought it was great, and it really helped our defense, through the tough times. And his performance really never wavered from game to game. He was very, very consistent. I think he's in a great place, and he's another guy that we're very fortunate that we have under contract next year.
Marlon Humphrey isn't going anywhere. All Pro Marlo seems to have at least one more year with the Ravens. They're going to need him all hands on deck. He had a great year, healthy, focused, locked in, especially after like the first couple of games where they were 0-2. You really saw Marlon become a leader, more so, even more this year. We talk about, oh, this team doesn't have leaders. I think Marlon Humphrey should get some credit of being a leader. He was not playing his best, getting called out about his podcast. He stepped up and he's really, really become big time for this team. And last but not least, we got Pat Ricard. We can't forget about the big fella. He is indeed a free agent himself. And let's hear what Eric DeCosta had to say about one of the few teams who still use fullbacks, by the way.
No, we haven't had those discussions yet. His agent's a good friend of mine, and I think Pat knows how we feel about him, and I would love for him to retire as a Raven too. I mean, he epitomizes everything that we're all about, and he's another undrafted guy who just became, in my opinion, the best at his position. So we'll have those discussions. This is not the first time that he's been a free agent, and so in fact, I think he's signed at least 2 deals with us after his rookie deal. So this is probably his 4th contract now with us if we can get him signed. And I would say that would be the goal. No, we have.
So, and I'm muted myself. Looks like Pat Ricard looks to be somebody they want to bring back. He's a fullback. Not going to break the bank. And looks like someone that they've had since a rookie. They've done multiple deals with. They want him to finish his career as a Baltimore Raven. And I think that's what inevitably is going to happen because I don't know who's going to sign him. I don't know what Juszczyk is making, but I'm sure his contract will be comparable as the 49ers. And I don't know who else uses a fullback. There are only like 3 in the league, and the Ravens are one of the 3. But I mean, more of the same. You can tell they're down. You can tell they're upset. They talked about Zay Flowers, him being able to possibly play this week if they were played. Obviously, trying to keep some of the other free agents, Darius Washington, of course, Ronnie Stanley. So, what do you think, Ravens flock? It's tough. We're trying to get over it. I'm trying to come to grips with it. But DeCosta said he's moved on. Harbaugh entering the last year of his deal. I think an extension is coming personally. We'll talk about that in another video. But subscribe down below. Comment your thoughts on the press conference. Was it more about nothing? Same old, a bunch of excuses, a bunch of coach speak and GM speak? Probably. But you can tell they're upset. They're sad. They're a little down because they keep falling up short. And they know that they put together the best rosters that they can for the most part. And it just seems like we always say, nobody beats the Ravens like the Ravens. They're their own biggest enemy. And until they continue to stop beating themselves, they'll continue to fall short, whether that's the divisional round, conference championship, hell, even if they make a Super Bowl, will they be able to close the deal? And that's where it comes down to, between the ears with this team. We know they have the right pieces in place, but it's not about what you do on paper. It's about execution on the field. And on Sunday in Buffalo, I can't put this on the coach. I can't put this on the GM. Some of their best players didn't execute as well. But make sure you stiff arm that subscribe button. Tackle that thumbs up. Leave us a like. It helps us out tremendously in the YouTube algorithm. And we want to hear from you. Comment your thoughts on the press conference. What videos do you want to see in the offseason? We got more content coming your way on the Flex Zone. Home for Ravens, Commanders, Orioles, Maryland Terps, wrestling, and all the other sports content and pop culture and more. Signing off. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for watching. Ravens offseason underway. I'll keep you posted each step of the way. Peace.